You've been told that breaking patterns requires massive effort, willpower, and years of therapy. But what if I told you that quantum pattern breaking is actually the most natural thing in the universe, and you've been making it impossibly complicated? What if the very loop you're stuck in is actually just a quantum field that's forgotten how to collapse into something new? Here's what nobody wants you to know. The billion-dollar self-help industry thrives on keeping you trapped in improvement loops. Think about it. How many times have you tried to break a pattern? How many books, courses, affirmations, and techniques have you consumed, only to find yourself right back where you started? It's not because you're broken. It's not because you lack willpower. It's because you've been taught to fight the pattern, instead of understanding what a pattern actually is at the quantum level. A pattern isn't a habit. A pattern isn't a behavior. A pattern is a coherent quantum field that's broadcasting the same information over and over again. And here's the kicker. Every time you try to break it using force, using resistance, using willpower, you're actually feeding it more energy. You're making it stronger. You're confirming its reality. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you experienced a genuine miracle? Not something you manifested through technique, not something you attracted through visualization, but something that just happened so effortlessly it took your breath away. I'm willing to bet it happened during a moment when you completely forgot about trying to change anything, when you were so present, so absorbed in something else, that your patterns simply dissolved without you noticing. That's quantum pattern breaking in its purest form, and it reveals something profound about how reality actually works. The quantum field doesn't recognize struggle. It doesn't understand resistance. It only responds to coherence. When you're fighting a pattern, you're in a state of quantum incoherence. Part of you wants to change, part of you wants to stay the same, and the field receives mixed signals. So it defaults to what it knows, what's familiar, what feels safe, even if that familiar thing is making you miserable. But when you understand that a pattern is just information that's been repeated so many times it's become a default setting in your personal quantum field, everything changes, because information can be updated, information can be overwritten, information can be transformed in an instant, not through force, but through coherence. Here's where modern science gets really interesting. Researchers at the HeartMath Institute have discovered that your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's 5,000 times stronger than your brain's field. This heart field extends 8 to 10 feet around your body, and it's constantly broadcasting information about your internal state to the quantum field around you. When you're stuck in a pattern, your heart is broadcasting the same electromagnetic signature over and over again. The field receives this signal and responds by creating experiences that match that signature. But here's what's fascinating. Your heart field can change its electromagnetic signature in less than 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Not 3 months, not 3 years, 3 seconds. When you shift into what HeartMath calls coherence, when your heart rhythm becomes smooth and ordered, you literally broadcast a different signal to the quantum field. And the field has no choice but to respond with different experiences. I remember working with a client who had been stuck in the same relationship pattern for 15 years. Every relationship started with intense attraction, moved into comfortable companionship, then devolved into criticism and eventual breakup. She'd tried therapy, she'd tried dating coaches, she'd tried taking breaks from dating altogether. Nothing worked. The pattern kept repeating with mathematical precision. When we looked at this through a quantum lens, something remarkable became clear. Her heart field was broadcasting a very specific electromagnetic signature that was rooted in a story about love being temporary. Not consciously, she genuinely wanted lasting love. But at the quantum level, her field was coherent around the belief that all good things end. So the universe kept delivering experiences that confirmed this belief. The breakthrough came when she realized she didn't need to heal this belief or fix this pattern or overcome this limitation. She simply needed to broadcast a different signal. We worked with a technique I call quantum coherence breathing, where you breathe in a way that naturally synchronizes your heart rhythm and creates electromagnetic coherence. Within minutes, her entire energy shifted. She could feel the old pattern dissolving, not through effort, but through alignment. 3 weeks later, she met someone completely different from her usual type, someone who was stable where her previous partners had been chaotic, consistent where they had been unpredictable, emotionally available where they had been distant. The relationship unfolded with an ease she'd never experienced. No games, no drama, no push and pull, just natural, sustainable love. What happened? She didn't change her personality. She didn't heal her childhood wounds. She didn't become a different person. She simply started broadcasting a different quantum signature, and the field responded by delivering experiences that matched her new coherence. This is what I mean when I say, patterns are just information. When you change the information you're broadcasting, you change the experiences you receive. It's not personal development, it's quantum physics. But here's where most people get tripped up. They try to change their signal by thinking different thoughts or feeling different emotions. This creates what I call quantum confusion. Your thoughts are saying one thing, your emotions are saying another thing, your heart is broadcasting a third thing, and your subconscious is running a completely different program. The field receives this incoherent mess of signals and defaults to whatever pattern is strongest, which is usually the old one. Real quantum pattern breaking happens when all parts of you come into coherence around a new reality. Not just your conscious mind, but your heart, your nervous system, your cellular memory, your electromagnetic field. When every part of you is broadcasting the same signal, patterns don't just break, they transform instantly. Think about water for a moment. Water exists in different states depending on its molecular coherence. When water molecules are moving slowly and orderly, you get ice. When they're moving faster but still relatively organized, you get liquid water. When they're moving rapidly with high energy, you get steam. Same H2O molecules, completely different expressions based on their energetic state. Your patterns work the same way. The same core energy that creates your stuck patterns can create miraculous patterns when it shifts into a different state of coherence. You don't need to get rid of anything. You don't need to heal anything. You just need to change the energetic state of the information you're broadcasting. The reason most pattern-breaking techniques fail is because they're trying to eliminate the pattern instead of transforming it. They're trying to turn water into air instead of turning ice into steam. It's the wrong approach entirely. Here's something that will blow your mind. Every pattern you're stuck in contains the exact energy signature of the miracle you're trying to create. The intensity of your frustration with being stuck is precisely equal to the intensity of joy you'll feel when you break free. The depth of your longing for change is exactly matched by the power available for transformation. The pattern isn't your enemy. It's concentrated life force energy that's been locked into a repetitive loop. When you understand this, pattern breaking becomes almost effortless. Instead of fighting the pattern, you learn to redirect its energy. Instead of trying to eliminate it, you learn to transform it. Instead of seeing it as a problem to be solved, you see it as energy to be liberated. I worked with an entrepreneur who had been stuck in a feast or famine cycle for 8 years. Massive success followed by complete collapse over and over again. He'd hired business coaches, implemented systems, worked on his money mindset, done years of therapy around his relationship with success. The pattern kept repeating with clockwork precision. When we examined this quantum mechanically, we discovered something fascinating. His nervous system had learned to associate sustained success with danger. Not consciously, he desperately wanted consistent abundance, but his autonomic nervous system had been programmed to create chaos whenever things got too stable. It was a survival mechanism that had outlived its usefulness. The breakthrough came when he realized he could use the same intensity that created the chaos to create coherence instead. That restless, destructive energy wasn't his enemy. It was his superpower in disguise. We worked with techniques to redirect that intensity toward sustainable growth instead of cyclical destruction. Within 6 months, he'd created the most stable, profitable year of his business life, not through grinding or forcing or trying harder, but through channeling the same energy that had been creating chaos into creating coherence instead. The pattern didn't disappear. It transformed. The intensity remained, but now it was serving expansion instead of contraction. This is what quantum pattern breaking really means. You're not eliminating anything, you're transforming everything. You're not becoming a different person, you're becoming a coherent version of who you already are. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most people think patterns exist in their behavior or their thoughts or their emotions, but quantum patterns exist at a much deeper level. They exist in what scientists call the zero-point field, the quantum vacuum that underlies all of reality. This field contains every possible pattern, every possible outcome, every possible version of your life existing simultaneously as pure potential. The pattern you're experiencing right now isn't the only pattern available to you. It's just the one that's currently coherent, currently active, currently being broadcast by your electromagnetic field. But all the other patterns, including the miraculous ones, are right there in the field, waiting to be activated. When you understand this, you realize that breaking a pattern isn't about destroying anything. It's about shifting your coherence to activate a different pattern that already exists in the field. It's like changing the channel on a radio. The station you are listening to doesn't disappear, you just tune into a different frequency. Your stuck patterns are broadcasting on one frequency. Your miraculous patterns are broadcasting on another frequency. The question isn't how to eliminate the stuck frequency, it's how to tune into the miraculous frequency instead. And here's the beautiful part. The universe is constantly broadcasting every possible pattern simultaneously. Right now, as you're listening to this, there's a pattern where you're completely free from whatever's been holding you back. There's a pattern where your life flows with effortless ease. There's a pattern where miracles are so routine you almost take them for granted. These aren't fantasies. These aren't wishful thinking. These are actual quantum realities existing in the field right now. The only reason you're not experiencing them is because you're tuned into a different frequency. So how do you change the frequency? How do you tune into the miraculous patterns instead of the stuck patterns? This is where everything you've been taught about personal development falls apart, because the answer isn't what you think. You don't change frequency by trying to feel different. You don't change frequency by thinking positive thoughts. You don't change frequency by visualizing or affirming or manifesting. You change frequency by becoming coherent with the pattern you want to experience. Coherence isn't a feeling, it's a state of being. It's when every part of you, your thoughts, emotions, nervous system, heart field, and cellular memory, are all broadcasting the same signal. When you achieve coherence with a new pattern, you don't attract it into your life. You literally step into the version of reality where it already exists. Think about a laser for a moment. Regular light is incoherent. The photons are scattered, moving in different directions, canceling each other out. But when you align those same photons so they're all moving in the same direction with the same frequency, you get a laser beam that can cut through steel. Same photons, same light. But when they become coherent, they become incredibly powerful. Your consciousness works the same way. When all parts of your being become coherent around a new pattern, you become like a laser beam of focused intention. You don't just think about the new reality, you become it. You don't just want it, you embody it. You don't just visualize it, you are it. This is why willpower doesn't work for pattern breaking. Willpower is inherently incoherent. Part of you wants to change, part of you resists change, and you're literally fighting yourself. The field receives mixed signals and defaults to whatever pattern is strongest. But when you become coherent with a new pattern, there's no resistance because every part of you is aligned. Your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, your nervous system, your heart field, they're all broadcasting the same signal. The field has no choice but to respond by shifting you into the reality where that pattern is active. I remember the exact moment I understood this viscerally. I had been stuck in a pattern of creating amazing opportunities and then sabotaging them at the last minute. Job interviews that went perfectly until I said something stupid in the final minutes. Business deals that were almost closed until I found a way to mess them up. Relationships that were beautiful until I created unnecessary drama. I'd spent years trying to fix this pattern. Therapy, coaching, self-help books, meditation retreats, you name it. I understood the pattern intellectually. I could see it coming, but I couldn't stop it. It was like watching myself destroy my own life in slow motion over and over again. The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to fix the pattern and started getting curious about its quantum structure. What was the electromagnetic signature I was broadcasting? What was the coherent message my field was sending to the universe? As I tuned into this deeper level, I realized something shocking. The pattern wasn't about self-sabotage at all. It was about safety. My nervous system had learned that success was dangerous, that visibility was dangerous, that having too much good stuff would make me a target. So it was protecting me by creating failure at the last minute. The moment I understood this, everything shifted. I wasn't broken, I wasn't self-destructive, I was just broadcasting a signal that said, keep me safe by keeping me small. Once I saw this clearly, I could choose to broadcast a different signal. Not through force, not through willpower, but through compassion and understanding. I started working with what I call quantum safety protocols. Instead of trying to convince my nervous system that success was safe, I created coherence around the idea that my highest contribution to the world required me to be successful, that hiding my gifts was actually more dangerous than sharing them, that playing small was the real threat to my well-being. Within weeks, the pattern completely dissolved. Not gradually, not through struggle, but instantly. Opportunities started flowing with ease. I found myself naturally making choices that supported my success instead of sabotaging it. The same intensity that had been creating destruction was now creating sustainable abundance. The pattern didn't disappear. It transformed. The protective energy was still there, but now it was protecting my success instead of protecting me from success. Same energy, different coherence, completely different results. This is the secret that the self-help industry doesn't want you to know. Your patterns aren't problems to be solved, they're energy to be redirected. They're not evidence that you're broken, they're evidence that you're powerful. The same force that creates your stuck patterns can create miraculous patterns when it becomes coherent with a new reality. But here's what's really wild. When you break one pattern at the quantum level, it creates a ripple effect that transforms every other pattern in your life, because all your patterns are connected in the field. They're all part of the same coherent system, the same electromagnetic signature you're broadcasting to the universe. When you shift the fundamental frequency of your field, everything changes. Your relationships change, your career changes, your health changes, your finances change. Not because you're working on each area separately, but because they're all expressions of the same underlying pattern. This is why people have sudden dramatic life transformations that seem to come out of nowhere. They're not working harder or trying more techniques. They've achieved quantum coherence with a new pattern, and their entire reality shifts to match that new coherence. The question is, are you ready to stop fighting your patterns and start transforming them? Are you ready to discover that the very thing you've been trying to eliminate might actually be the key to your liberation? Because here's what I want you to understand. Right now, in this moment, you have access to every possible pattern of your life. The stuck ones and the miraculous ones are all broadcasting simultaneously in the quantum field. The only difference is which frequency you're tuned into. And tuning into a new frequency isn't about years of healing or months of practice or complicated techniques. It can happen in an instant when you achieve coherence with the pattern you want to experience. So let me ask you this. What pattern have you been trying to break? What loop have you been stuck in that feels impossible to escape? And what would it feel like to discover that this pattern contains the exact energy you need to create the miracle you've been longing for? Drop one word in the comments that describes the pattern you're ready to transform. Not to fix, not to eliminate, but to transform into something miraculous. Because that transformation is not only possible, it's inevitable when you understand how quantum patterns really work. The universe is about to show you something incredible about the power that's been hidden in your struggles. Are you ready to see your patterns as the gifts they actually are? The thing that's going to shock you is how simple quantum pattern breaking actually is. Once you understand what's really happening at the field level, you've been conditioned to believe that transformation requires massive effort, that breaking free from stuck patterns demands years of work, discipline, and probably some suffering along the way. But that's not how the quantum field operates. That's not how consciousness works. That's not how reality actually updates itself. Let me tell you about the observer effect, because this is where everything you think you know about patterns gets turned upside down. In quantum physics, the observer effect shows us that the act of observation literally changes what's being observed. When scientists observe an electron, it behaves like a particle. When they're not observing it, it exists as a wave of pure potential. The consciousness of the observer collapses the wave function into a specific reality. Your patterns work exactly the same way. When you're unconsciously repeating a pattern, you're like that unobserved electron existing as a wave of potential. The pattern feels solid, fixed, unchangeable because you're inside it, running it automatically without conscious awareness. But the moment you observe the pattern with quantum awareness, the moment you see it clearly for what it really is, you collapse its wave function. You turn it from an automatic program into conscious choice. This is why awareness alone is often enough to break a pattern instantly. Not trying to change it, not fighting it, not analyzing why it exists, just seeing it clearly. When you observe a pattern with coherent awareness, you literally change its quantum structure. You shift it from an unconscious wave of repetitive potential into a conscious particle of choice. But here's where most people get stuck. They observe their patterns through the lens of judgment, through the filter of, this is bad and I need to fix it. That kind of observation actually strengthens the pattern because you're collapsing the wave function with resistance energy. You're making the pattern more solid, more real, more persistent. Quantum observation is different. It's neutral. It's curious. It's compassionate. When you observe a pattern with quantum awareness, you're not trying to change it or judge it or eliminate it. You're simply witnessing it with the same fascination a scientist might have when observing a new phenomenon. This kind of observation creates space around the pattern, and in that space, transformation becomes possible. I worked with a woman who had been stuck in a pattern of attracting unavailable partners for 20 years. Married men, men in other relationships, men who were emotionally unavailable, men who lived in different countries, you name it. If there was a way for a man to be unavailable, she would find him and fall deeply in love. She'd done years of therapy exploring her father wounds, her attachment styles, her self-worth issues. She understood the psychology of her pattern perfectly. She could predict exactly how each relationship would unfold. But understanding the pattern intellectually didn't change it. If anything, her psychological insight seemed to make the pattern more sophisticated, more subtle, but no less persistent. When we started working together, I asked her to do something radical. Instead of analyzing why she chose unavailable men, I asked her to observe the moment of attraction itself with quantum awareness. What was actually happening in her field when she felt that magnetic pull towards someone who couldn't fully be with her? What she discovered was fascinating. The attraction wasn't really about the men at all. It was about the exquisite aliveness she felt when she was longing for something just out of reach. The pattern wasn't creating suffering. It was creating a very specific kind of energetic high. She was addicted to the frequency of beautiful impossibility. Once she saw this clearly, without judgment, the pattern began to dissolve naturally. She realized she could create that same exquisite aliveness through other means. She could feel that beautiful intensity while creating art, while building her business, while connecting with nature. The longing energy was actually her creative life force, and it had been getting channeled into romantic impossibility because that was the only place she'd learned to access it. Within months, she met someone who was completely available, and the relationship unfolded with a depth and sustainability she'd never experienced. But more importantly, she'd learned to access her own creative intensity without needing it to be reflected through unavailable others. The pattern didn't just break, it transformed into a source of creative power. This is what quantum observation does. It reveals the hidden gift in every pattern, the life force energy that's been locked into repetitive loops. When you see this clearly, you can redirect that energy toward what you actually want to create instead of what you've been unconsciously repeating. But observation is just the first step. The real magic happens when you learn to work with what I call quantum embodiment. This is where you don't just observe the pattern. You step into the feeling state of the reality you want to experience. Not visualization, not imagination, but actual embodiment at the cellular level. Your body doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you embody a new pattern with enough coherence, your nervous system updates its programming in real time. Your electromagnetic field starts broadcasting a different signature. Your subconscious mind begins operating from new assumptions about what's possible. Most people try to embody new patterns by thinking about how they would feel if their life was different. But that approach keeps you in the future tense, in the realm of someday maybe. Quantum embodiment happens in the present tense. You don't imagine how you would feel. You feel it now. You don't visualize what life would be like. You experience it as if it's already happening. The key is understanding that every pattern you want to experience already exists in the quantum field right now. It's not something you need to create or attract or manifest. It's something you need to tune into, to become coherent with, to embody as your current reality. Think about it this way. Right now there are radio waves for thousands of stations passing through the space where you're sitting. Country music, classical, talk radio, news, they're all there simultaneously. You don't create the station you want to hear. You tune into it. Your radio doesn't attract the music, it aligns with the frequency that's already broadcasting. Your consciousness works the same way. Every possible pattern of your life is broadcasting in the quantum field right now. The version where you're stuck and the version where you're free. The version where you struggle and the version where everything flows. The version where you're limited and the version where you're limitless. The pattern you experience depends entirely on which frequency you're embodying. And you change frequencies not by trying to feel different, but by becoming coherent with the reality you want to experience. Let me give you a practical example. Say you're stuck in a pattern of financial struggle. Traditional approaches would have you work on your money mindset, clear your limiting beliefs, maybe do some inner child work around scarcity. And while those things might help, they're still operating from the assumption that you need to fix something that's broken. Quantum embodiment works differently. Instead of trying to heal your relationship with money, You embody the frequency of someone who has a naturally abundant relationship with resources. You don't imagine what that would feel like. You tune into how that version of you moves through the world right now. How does someone with natural abundance hold their body? How do they breathe? How do they make decisions? How do they relate to opportunities? How do they feel about receiving? How do they think about giving? You embody these qualities not as a technique to get something, but as an expression of who you actually are when you're coherent with abundance. When you do this with enough consistency and coherence, something remarkable happens. Your nervous system starts operating from abundance assumptions. Your electromagnetic field starts broadcasting abundance frequencies. Your subconscious mind starts noticing abundance opportunities that were always there but invisible to scarcity consciousness. The external circumstances of your life begin shifting to match your new embodiment. Not because you're attracting different things, but because you're literally experiencing a different layer of reality. One where abundance is natural and struggle is foreign. I remember working with a client who had been under-earning for 15 years despite being incredibly talented and hardworking. She was a brilliant consultant who consistently charged far less than her expertise was worth. She'd tried everything to break this pattern: business coaching, mindset work, sales training, confidence building. Nothing stuck. She would temporarily raise her rates, then find ways to discount them or give away extra value that wasn't being paid for. When we looked at this through a quantum lens, we discovered something interesting. She wasn't under-earning because she had low self-worth. She was under-earning because she was coherent with a pattern of proving her value through self-sacrifice. At a deep level, she believed that charging what she was worth would somehow diminish the purity of her service. This wasn't a limiting belief to be cleared. It was a complete identity to be transformed. We worked with quantum embodiment exercises where she experienced what it felt like to be someone who naturally charged premium rates, because that allowed her to serve at the highest level. Someone who understood that undercharging actually diminished her ability to help people, because it forced her to work with too many clients and spread her attention too thin. As she embodied this new identity, everything shifted. She didn't just raise her rates, she completely transformed how she thought about value exchange. She started attracting clients who were excited to pay premium prices because they could feel the difference in her energy. She went from struggling to make six figures to easily creating multiple six figures, not by working harder, but by embodying the frequency of someone who naturally operates at that level. The pattern didn't break through effort or technique. It transformed through coherence. She became someone for whom premium pricing was natural, and reality shifted to match that new embodiment. This is what I mean when I say patterns are just information. When you change the information you're embodying, you change the reality you experience. It's not personal development, it's quantum physics. But here's what's really wild about quantum embodiment. It doesn't just change your individual patterns, it changes the patterns of everyone around you. Because consciousness is not separate. We're all connected in the same quantum field, and when you shift your frequency, it creates ripples that affect the entire system. When you embody a new pattern, you give everyone in your life permission to embody new patterns too. Your transformation becomes a quantum field upgrade that elevates everyone you interact with. This is why some people seem to have a magical effect on others. They're not doing anything to other people. They're simply embodying such coherent frequencies that being around them naturally elevates everyone else's possibilities. I've seen this happen countless times. Someone breaks free from a stuck pattern, and suddenly their spouse starts thriving in ways they never had before. Their children become more confident and creative. Their friends start making breakthrough changes in their own lives. Their colleagues begin performing at higher levels. It's not coincidence, it's quantum field dynamics. When you become coherent with miraculous patterns, you literally upgrade the field around you. You become what I call a quantum catalyst, someone whose very presence makes transformation easier for others. But here's where most people sabotage their own breakthrough. They start experiencing the new pattern, they feel the shift happening, and then they get scared. Because transformation, even positive transformation, can feel threatening to the parts of you that are invested in staying safe and familiar. Your ego mind doesn't distinguish between good change and bad change. To your survival programming, all change is potentially dangerous. So right when you're on the verge of a breakthrough, right when the new pattern is starting to stabilize, your system might create what I call quantum interference. Suddenly you'll find reasons why the new pattern won't work. You'll remember all the times you tried to change before and failed. You'll start worrying about what other people will think. You'll convince yourself that you're being unrealistic or that you don't deserve this level of transformation. This isn't resistance. It's recalibration anxiety. Your system is adjusting to operating at a new frequency, and that adjustment period can feel destabilizing. Most people interpret this discomfort as evidence that they're doing something wrong, so they retreat back to the familiar pattern. But if you understand what's happening, you can move through this recalibration period with grace. You can recognize the anxiety as a sign that transformation is working, not that it's failing. You can support your system through the adjustment instead of abandoning the new pattern when it feels uncomfortable. The key is what I call quantum patience. This is different from regular patience, which is about waiting for something to happen. Quantum patience is about trusting that the transformation is already happening, even when you can't see evidence of it yet in your external circumstances. When you embody a new pattern, it creates what physicists call a phase transition. Like water turning into steam, there's a period where the old structure is dissolving but the new structure hasn't fully formed yet. Everything feels unstable and uncertain because you're literally between realities. During this phase transition, your job isn't to make things happen or force results or prove that the new pattern is working. Your job is simply to maintain coherence with the frequency you want to experience, regardless of what your external circumstances look like. This requires tremendous faith, not religious faith, but quantum faith, the understanding that reality operates according to coherence principles, and that when you maintain coherence with a pattern long enough, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself to match that pattern. I think about a client who was transforming a pattern of chronic health issues. She'd been dealing with autoimmune problems for over a decade, and despite trying every healing modality imaginable, her health kept deteriorating. When we started working together, she was on multiple medications and could barely function most days. We approached her health challenges as a quantum pattern rather than a medical condition. What information was her body broadcasting? What coherent message was her immune system expressing? As we explored this, she realized her body was perfectly expressing a pattern of being under attack. Her immune system was fighting her own tissues because at a quantum level, she was coherent with the experience of being unsafe in her own body. This wasn't psychological. It was informational. Her cellular memory was broadcasting danger signals, and her immune system was responding appropriately to that information. The problem wasn't her immune system. It was the information her system was receiving. We worked with quantum embodiment techniques where she experienced what it felt like to be someone whose body was a safe, nurturing home, someone whose immune system was brilliantly designed to protect and support her, someone whose cellular intelligence was constantly working in her favor. The first few weeks were challenging because her symptoms actually intensified. Her system was recalibrating, releasing old information, and integrating new patterns. But instead of interpreting this as failure, she recognized it as her body's way of clearing out old programming to make space for new coherence. Within 3 months, her inflammation markers had normalized. Within 6 months, she was off all medications. Within a year, she had more energy and vitality than she'd experienced in decades. Her doctors were amazed, but from a quantum perspective, it made perfect sense. She'd changed the information her body was receiving, and her physical reality had updated to match that new information. The transformation didn't happen through fighting the illness or trying to heal what was broken. It happened through embodying the frequency of someone whose body naturally maintains perfect health. Her immune system didn't need to be fixed. It needed to receive different information. This is the power of quantum embodiment. You're not trying to change your circumstances. You're changing the frequency you're broadcasting, and your circumstances naturally shift to match that new frequency. But embodiment alone isn't enough. The final piece of quantum pattern breaking is what I call coherent action. This is where you take inspired action from the new pattern rather than effortful action from the old pattern. Most people try to change their lives through force-based action. They push, they struggle, they try to make things happen through willpower and determination. But this kind of action is often coming from the old pattern, the one that believes change is hard and requires massive effort. Coherent action is different. It's action that arises naturally from embodying the new pattern. It doesn't feel forced or difficult because it's aligned with the frequency you're broadcasting. It's like a river flowing downhill, natural and effortless because it's moving in harmony with the underlying forces. When you're embodying abundance, coherent action might be raising your prices without anxiety. When you're embodying health, coherent action might be naturally craving foods that nourish you. When you're embodying love, Coherent action might be setting boundaries that honor your worth. These actions don't require willpower because they're expressions of who you're being, not strategies to get what you want. They arise from coherence, not from effort. The beautiful thing about coherent action is that it creates results with minimal resistance. Because you're acting from the new pattern, the actions you take are naturally aligned with the reality you're embodying. The universe doesn't have to work against your actions, it can support them. This is why some people seem to create miraculous results with apparent ease while others struggle and strain for minimal progress. It's not that some people are luckier or more talented. It's that some people have learned to take coherent action from their desired patterns while others are taking effortful action from their stuck patterns. Are you starting to see how different this is from everything you've been taught about change and transformation? You're not broken, and you don't need to be fixed. You're not lacking willpower or discipline or the right techniques. You're simply broadcasting a frequency that creates certain patterns, and when you learn to broadcast a different frequency, you get different patterns. The question isn't how to eliminate your stuck patterns. It's how to become coherent with the miraculous patterns that are already available in the field. How to observe your current patterns without judgment, embody new patterns with consistency, and take coherent action from those new frequencies. When you understand this, pattern breaking becomes as natural as changing the channel on a radio. You're not destroying the old station, you're simply tuning into a different frequency that was always available. Right now, as you're listening to this, there are infinite versions of your life existing simultaneously in the quantum field. There's a version where you're completely free from whatever pattern has been holding you back. There's a version where your life flows with such ease that what used to feel impossible now feels inevitable. There's a version where miracles aren't rare events but natural expressions of who you are. These aren't fantasies or wishful thinking. These are actual quantum realities broadcasting at frequencies that are available to you right now. The only reason you're not experiencing them is because you've been tuned into a different station, coherent with patterns that feel familiar even when they're making you miserable. But here's what I want you to understand with every cell of your being. You have the power to change the channel. You have the ability to shift your coherence from stuck patterns to miraculous patterns, not through years of healing or complicated techniques or massive effort, but through understanding how consciousness actually works at the quantum level. Your patterns aren't your identity. They're just information that's been repeated so many times it feels like truth. But information can be updated. Information can be transformed. Information can be completely rewritten in an instant when you achieve coherence with a new reality. The breakthrough you've been longing for isn't something you need to create or attract or manifest. It already exists in the field, broadcasting at a frequency that's available to you right now. Your job isn't to make it happen. Your job is to tune into it, to observe your current patterns with compassionate awareness, to embody the frequency of the reality you want to experience, to take coherent action from that new embodiment. When you do this, when you really understand that you're not stuck because you're broken but because you're broadcasting a frequency that creates stuckness, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself and start aligning with yourself. You stop trying to eliminate patterns and start transforming them. You stop looking for techniques that will fix you and start embodying the frequency of someone who doesn't need to be fixed. This is the quantum pattern break that changes everything. Not just the specific pattern you've been struggling with, but your entire relationship to change itself. You realize that transformation isn't hard, it's natural. You realize that miracles aren't rare. They're what happens when you're coherent with miraculous frequencies. You realize that the life you've been dreaming of isn't someday, maybe. It's right now, when you tune into the right frequency. The universe has been waiting for you to remember this power. Not the power to force change through willpower and effort, but the power to allow change through coherence and alignment. The power to step out of patterns that no longer serve you and into patterns that express your highest potential. Your stuck patterns have been perfect teachers, showing you exactly where you've been broadcasting frequencies that create limitation. But now you know that the same energy that's been creating those patterns can create miraculous patterns when it becomes coherent with a new reality. The question isn't whether you can break free from whatever's been holding you back. The question is whether you're ready to stop trying so hard and start allowing the transformation that's already available to you. Whether you're ready to trust that consciousness operates according to coherence principles, and that when you align with the frequency of what you want to experience, reality has no choice but to shift to match that alignment. If you're feeling that spark of recognition, that sense of possibility that comes when truth resonates at the cellular level, hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning of understanding how powerful you actually are when you work with quantum principles instead of against them. And here's your quantum homework, if you choose to accept it. For the next 24 hours, instead of trying to fix or change or improve anything about your life, simply observe your patterns with the same fascination a scientist would have when discovering a new phenomenon. Don't judge them, don't analyze them, don't try to figure out where they came from. Just witness them with curiosity and compassion. Then, for just 5 minutes, embody the frequency of someone who naturally experiences what you've been trying to create. Not visualization, not imagination, but actual embodiment. Feel it in your body. Breathe it into your cells. Let it become your reality for those 5 minutes. Watch what happens. Watch how reality starts to shift when you stop fighting your patterns and start transforming them. Watch how miracles start to feel routine when you're coherent with miraculous frequencies. The quantum field is responding to your coherence right now. The patterns you embody today are creating the reality you'll experience tomorrow. And the most beautiful part is that you get to choose which patterns to embody, which frequencies to broadcast, which version of reality to make coherent. Your breakthrough isn't coming someday when you finally figure everything out or heal all your wounds or learn the right techniques. Your breakthrough is available right now, in this moment, when you realize that you're not a victim of your patterns but the conscious creator of them. The loop you've been stuck in isn't a prison, it's a quantum field waiting for new information. And you are the one who gets to provide that information through your coherence, your embodiment, your alignment with the miraculous patterns that are already broadcasting your name. Welcome to your quantum pattern break. Welcome to the reality where miracles aren't accidents but natural expressions of who you are when you're coherent with your highest potential. Welcome to the frequency where everything you've been struggling to create already exists, waiting for you to tune in and turn it on. The universe is about to show you what's possible when you stop trying to break patterns and start transforming them instead. Are you ready to see what miracles look like when they become routine?